Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. It's time to get fired up. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. Please rate and review this show. I'm your host, Wayne Blue. I'm joined by co-host Blake Murphy. Yeah, great event last night. For everyone who went out to Raps Republic, the live show, big thanks to Zarar, Samson, Lewis, guys like that for putting it on. And yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, I had a good time. I mean, great turnout at the Rivoli, which is, the usual spot for our stuff.
It is definitely the go-to.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun. I thought our panel that went on a little later was good. It was like very player development focused. We had Brendan Leftwich, who's an assistant coach for Raptors 905.
He was a great speaker.
Great speaker and really fun getting him going. So he was recently playing college ball.
Okay.
So he's played against Maxey and quickly Kentucky teams.
Oh yeah.
So he was telling I knew Andrew Damlin of Raptors Republic, and who also calls the 905 games on Mississauga radio sometimes. I knew he wanted to set him up for it at one point, but I could tell Andrew had asked him about his playing time questions in college, and then the conversation steered elsewhere, and I tried to hard turn it back. I'm no, set him up for the Kentucky set. And Leftwich was rubbing his hands, ready to go, talking about how broken play down big, he yammed on Tyrese Maxey.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
So he has that. He has that. But it was cool. He's 26. So versus other coaches we've talked to in this space and other coaches I've talked to in the G League space before, he is fresh from playing. He played against Marquise Noel in high school, in the New York high school scene. He played against some of these guys in college. So for him to have that level of youth and energy and positivity and stuff like that, and connect with these young guys at that level versus where, older coaches have to come at that differently, and maybe it's less a personal connection, more purely bad. It was cool to talk to him about. But I thought your guys' panel, the earlier one with you and S and Trey, Iman, and Samson was, that could have been an hour. If we had if Derek had a censor button ready for you, that could have been an hour on this show. We should have just recorded it.
I was so happy that A, it wasn't recorded, and that B, the audience wasn't live tweeting anything that anyone was saying. Because it's you could just actually, not let the chopper fly, but just speak more openly, candidly about things.
Well, yeah, you don't have to worry about if I need to word this a specific way because what if the aggregation, misinterprets it or miswords it or whatever.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. There's also I saw some people asking why isn't this released as a pod, or can you guys record it and release it? Yeah, first of all, it's not up to us, but also this also creates a benefit to doing a live event and having the community around it. And I don't know, when you guys did the live event last year that Bobby Webster went out to, did you record that and release it as a pod?
No, we didn't. That was actually a specific request from the PR staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was this is how
speaking of PR staff. I see you, Josh Sue.
Yeah, this was
the thing yesterday.
This was a specific request from the Raptors 905 PR staff to not let Leftwich cook in recorded fashion. No, it was a lot of fun, and you guys did a lot of trade deadline stuff.
We did, yeah.
Do you want to start with there? I got some rumor roundups ready for you.
What you got?
It's pretty quiet today. It is obviously the day before the trade deadline. I went back and I looked at some prior trade deadlines to see, how quiet is this right now versus prior years. Well, last year there was one trade on the Monday of deadline week, 0 on the Tuesday, 1 on Wednesday, and then 12 on the Thursday.
Okay.
The year before that, there was a little more action. There were 5 trades over the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then 10 on the deadline. The COVID year, the restart year where the deadline was late in March, there were 16 on deadline day. So kind of everything waited until that. And then if you go back, historically, there has always been at least one trade today. We got that. Simone Fontecchio to the Detroit Pistons for the draft rights to Gabriel Procida, a 2024 second-round pick, and Kevin Knox, who I'd imagine will be waived or just sit on the bench the rest of the year or whatever. So we did get that one today. Yeah. But rumor-wise, it feels quieter than usual. And before we get into the specifics that are out there, there aren't a lot, so I'm not bearing the lead or anything here. But how much of this do you think is based on the fact that OG and Pascal and Terry Rozier, to be honest, I don't want to include him with those two guys, but in terms of who's going to get dealt at the deadline, 3 of the biggest deals already happened.
Yeah. I mean, that's not the norm. The norm isn't that you have those type of big deals earlier in the deadline. The norm is that you get all of them, in a glut tomorrow, which, by the way, we will be on air from 1 to 4 p.m. There's also talks that there is going to be an availability with a member of the Raptors front office. If I had to guess, probably Bobby Webster. But who knows? Maybe Masai shows up.
There will be an availability. We're just not sure it'll happen during our hour.
Exactly. Yeah. It's tentatively scheduled for the 3 p.m. hour, but I mean, who knows? Again, things got, wrap up a little longer. Deadline day is a little unpredictable. But yeah, we'll be on from 1 to 4. But yeah, typically that's when the deals get done. So I think from the Raptors side, the OG one seemed like he was pretty much going to New York anyway because of the agent change and things like that. So you got that deal done. You got a pretty good return from it. RJ and Quickly, they're now two pieces of your young core. And then the Pascal trade, I just felt like they had hit a point where it's like, okay, clearly he's going to get dealt. Clearly you've looked at the whole market, and Indiana is the one place that it has the right conditions. He's going to re-sign there. They have things that they will trade you for him, and you may be able to squeeze them for more. And I would have preferred if, again, we've already gone through this, but they took the deal that was on the table, and then they left themselves this window where you can now try to move Bruce Brown. So I'm sure you have some Bruce Brown rumors for me at some point.
Yeah, let's start with Bruce Brown. By the way, I do want to, if we have time in this segment or at the end of the show around the NBA, do you remember? So we worked together at the Score. I was there 2013 to 2015. You were, I think, 2014 to a little later.
19 until
but
19.
The 2015 trade deadline is the one we got to work together with the giant whiteboard in the war room and everything.
Yeah.
And nothing happened until 2:30. And there were 12 trades involving 43 players in the last half hour of deadline day. I want to go back through some of those with you after. But right now, we're going to look at the rumor roundup here. So Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN was talking on the Woj pod, and he didn't get too deep into this, but he used the term very good chance that Bruce Brown moves. The specifics were light. He mentioned some of the teams we've heard pretty regularly: Lakers, Knicks, Bucks. Jake Fisher, our pal at Yahoo Sports, also included a note that the Knicks have been more focused on Bruce Brown than other options. Like, say, they've been attached to PJ Washington at one point. The focus seems to be more on Bruce Brown. And the Raptors were looking for in the range of a first value-wise. So if not a first, a high second and a prospect or something like that is the way I interpret that.
Yeah.
Now, Michael Grange has a piece up at sportsnet.ca today that is mostly talking to Chris Boucher and Bruce Brown about their different kind of perspectives on sitting here at trade deadline day, and we'll talk Boucher stuff in a second. Bruce Brown's basically like, I don't care, man. Like I know the game. I've been traded a bunch of times. I didn't sign a lease. But within that, Grange says not only are the Raptors asking for a first, they have been offered a first for Bruce Brown.
Oh,
so
there's one on the
Grange
table.
including in
All
there,
right.
now we don't know the specifics. He kind of he didn't report this. He kind of this was editorializing or him reading between the lines that maybe a 2024 first was offered, and given how many picks the Raptors could already have in this draft, they're trying to get a future first, and then who knows, maybe you're arguing protections and stuff like that beyond that. But Grange's article does include the note that a first-round pick has been offered for Bruce Brown. So that is, I think, the firmest we've heard on what the Raptors have actually received in terms of Brown interest versus what they're just asking for. Don't know if you saw that note or this is the first you're hearing it, but how encouraging is that to you to hear that at least some first has been on the table?
Oh, first off, I'm voraciously consuming any piece from Michael Grange, our teammate here at Sportsnet. No, especially around trade deadline, because you want to know every insight. I'm listening to every pod right now. It's sick, man. I'm not even listening to music. All I'm listening to is Brian Windhorst. Maybe he'll say the words Bruce Brown. My ears will perk up. I'm listening to Woj pod. He's bringing it now daily with him and Bobby Marks for this week, listen to Low Post, et cetera, right? Look, I think that's great. And I think for the Raptors purposes, if you have that one firmly in hand, now you can go around the rest of the league and say, okay, can you top this offer? Yeah. And if you can't, then we'll go back to it. I think the only concern, I suppose, is if that somehow slips from the table. But again, this is, I suppose, typical trade deadline negotiations, and they'll be making lots of phone calls between now and then. And look, but yeah, if you can get a first round pick for Bruce Brown right now, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, there will be firsts that get traded, and assuming the DeJounte Murray and Zach LaVine's hurt at this point, but after DeJounte Murray, Bruce Brown's close to the top of the table in terms of names we've heard are available or could move. Like the reporting, and we'll talk to Marc Stein at 3:00. The reporting seems like Kuzma's probably not going anywhere. The way the latest tea leaves seem, maybe someone has to come back over the top. But in terms of
don't
guys,
break up Kuzma. Please. It's the best nickname we've had in sports.
You got to free DeLon, though.
Yeah, you can free DeLon.
Get DeLon to Denver.
DeLon to Denver would be nice. They've always done well with long-ish point guards who don't necessarily need to handle the ball all the time.
Yeah, KCP. I mean, KCP can shoot a little bit more, but
Monty Morris.
Yeah.
Will Barton
The
even to a
count
degree?
of Monty assist the TO.
That's a bad thing.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing that would follow from, and who knows, this Bruce Brown theoretically for a first, maybe it's the Evan Fournier salary and that's off the books and you're good to go. Maybe it's a more Davis Bertans type where you're taking a little bit of money for next year. Who knows? Maybe it's even, you got to eat a salary for next year, but it's a better first.
Who cares?
We can see that when it comes. Just looking at it as Bruce Brown for a first.
Yeah.
Would that, like we sat here when the Pascal news came down, you were pretty disappointed with the return.
Yeah, totally.
If it turns out you turned around and swung one of those pieces for a 4th first-round pick, and it's more like Pascal for 4 firsts, do you feel a little bit better about it?
For sure. Because I think the Bruce Brown piece was definitely going to be like your holding value for like in like an intermediate kind of time frame. But I think for me, the question is, which direction do you want to go? Do you want to specifically get the first, or do you want to get a prospect? And I think that's something that was actually posed to us last night at the R panel. So I'll pose it to you. Would you rather get a first for him, or would you rather get a prospect for him?
I mean, it depends the level of prospect. Like I would say, like use
what's
an
like
example.
The lowest prospect you would?
To use an example we've kicked around.
Okay.
If you could, and this is a not the best example because Milwaukee's salary structure, it makes Bruce Brown kind of difficult to work out, but bear with me here.
Sure.
I would value Andre Jackson Jr., who is toward the end of year 1 of his rookie contract and was a recent late first-round pick and has shown he can play and contribute in the NBA. I would value that more than or I guess he was a 36th overall pick last year. Not a first-round pick, but either way. I would value that a little bit more than some generic late first. Now, obviously, like if we're talking about a pick that's 2029 completely unprotected, that's a little different. But if we're comparing, say, an Andre Jackson Jr., who has 3 more years left at basically the league minimum beyond this year, has already shown he can contribute in spot minutes to a very, very good team and has some of the skill set that fits what the Raptors are looking for. If you can get a guy like that, I value that more than another late first in 2024, probably even more than a late first in 2025. He's 22, so he's the same age as Scotty. He needs a couple years to reach the type of player he's going to be, but there's a lot more certainty to me in, even though he was only the number 36 pick, the fact that he is, first of all, locked up very, very inexpensively, but also like has shown, hey, I can play minutes on a really, really good team already. That to me is more interesting than a guy who, with the 28th pick this year, next, you're going to hope can become Andre Jackson Jr.
Can I pop quiz? Since Doc Rivers took over 5 games ago, how many minutes do you think Andre Jackson Jr. has played?
8 total.
37 seconds. Yeah, he's been at DMP in 4 of the 5 games, and then the 1 game they lost to Utah by 15, so he played 37 seconds of garbage time.
Maybe you don't have this handy. How many has Marjan Beauchamp played?
I think it's actually the exact same number.
Okay,
I think it's the exact same number because I saw the stat come around and I couldn't really believe it until I
Beauchamp's played only in that Utah game since January 27th.
Yeah.
So
no, Doc has literally not played a single guy under 27 since taking over, which is not that surprising. I guess it's like, okay, veteran coach wants to make that push, whatever, but. He wouldn't be the first guy to just lean on the older guys, but yeah, I mean, they've also had some guys in and out of the lineup too, and Dame, for example, didn't play last night, but I mean, listen, if you could snipe those guys, I'd be pretty happy with it,
I would say it is a little bit surprising because Jackson's been, obviously he's not you don't play him in your top 8 in a playoff series when you're a title contender yet, but he's been good for them. And then Beauchamp has hit 40% of his threes this year. I
like Marjan too.
Yeah, like that. He's not the greatest sophomore of all time or anything like that, but he can hit a 3. He obviously has some good length there. We actually talked about him a little bit last night with Brendan Leftwich because we were talking about the G League Ignite experience, and he had worked with Marjan Beauchamp last year as a rookie when Leftwich was with the Wisconsin Herd rather, and just kind of how much more pro ready he seemed than a rookie maybe coming out of 1 year of college. We need to see more there, but that's. If you're a team talking to the Bucks and Marjan Beauchamp and Andre Jackson Jr. aren't playing much, the Bucks have no firsts that they can offer. They've got a high second from Portland this year,
right.
But that's about it. Those 2 guys are interesting to me. Not just for the Raptors, for anyone.
So you said earlier that Bruce Brown, for the Bucks to acquire Bruce Brown, would be pretty difficult contractually.
Yeah.
Why is that? Who would they have to give up in that context?
So they would have to give up Bobby Portis or Pat Connaughton. Or if it's only one of those guys, multiple additional players. So Bruce Brown makes $22 million.
Okay.
The Bucks are, they got to be at least mindful of the tax impact, taking on extra salary and stuff like that. And basically, they have Giannis, Dame, Brook, and Middleton who make a ton of money, everyone else making the minimum, and the only guys in between are Portis and Connaughton.
Right.
So if you remember 2016, the year the Raptors went to the conference finals, everyone wanted them to add at the deadline. This is a good team. You've got a chance here. Let's make a run. And their contract status was set up so that Patrick Patterson was the only guy with a mid-tier salary. So every single trade scenario was it was our own H-BAP.
Yeah.
P-Pat and a pick for whatever, like people were talking themselves into Markieff Morris, who probably at that time was still better than Patrick Patterson, but not for very much longer.
Ersan Ilyasova probably chased him for years.
So that's the situation they're in where, okay, if you have to pair Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton to get Bruce Brown.
Yeah, at that point you're taking 2 guys out of your rotation.
Yeah, and this is already a fairly thin team.
Right.
So maybe Bruce Brown's not the target for them. Maybe it's like we heard, I think Marc Stein had mentioned that the idea was at least floated, but it doesn't have traction. That like, okay, what about turning Bobby Portis into like Grant Williams or something like that?
Yeah.
And that's more of a challenge trade, like a win-win. But if you're a team that's selling, you've got to have a better player than Bobby Portis from Milwaukee, who also makes like less than $15 million.
Yeah,
which is tough.
That is tough. Okay, so maybe that deal's not there, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe you swap it out, Gary. If they like Gary, for example.
Yeah.
Chris, I suppose. I don't know.
Gary's a little easier to make the cap math work. He makes $3.5 million less than Bruce Brown, but you're still talking like he has to be enough of an upgrade on Pat Connaughton and all the depth pieces that you'd have to use to make the salary math work.
It sounds like they really want to swing for DeJounte Murray, but again, I don't really see how they can get it done.
They'd have to put Middleton in the deal.
Yeah. Like you saw Middleton left the game yesterday.
Yeah. Ankle sprain.
Yeah, KD contested the shot and had the foot underneath. I mean, it wasn't Zaza sliding the foot underneath. He was just there on the contest. But
actually, sorry, I misspoke. DeJounte Murray's contract is still light enough that they could do it with Portis, Connaughton, and extra, but they don't have a first.
They don't have a first. That's the issue.
So Atlanta reportedly wanting 2 firsts there. So that's the Bruce Brown latest.
Yep. What else do you got for me?
So there's not a lot of buzz on Chris Boucher right now. I think at this point, every Toronto Raptors person has written like, yeah, Chris Boucher is available.
Not me, Chris. Remember that when you're still here at the deadline.
Yeah. Look, you're not going to get a lot for it.
Okay.
But Grange had what I thought was an interesting quote from Chris Boucher that I want to read to you. So first of all, Grange said Boucher's pretty resigned to it, and this is Boucher now. I mean, everything has to end, right? So if that's what's going to happen, then cool. Hopefully it will put me in a better position. You never know what could happen with what's been going on this year. Obviously, I just got to wait my turn, I guess. If a better situation shows up and they decide to send me somewhere else, so be it.
Yeah.
He later went on to explain to Grange that like maybe earlier in my career, like these DNPs, I'd be out here complaining to media or whatever, but he knows the business at this point. He knows what it is.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, it's a little sad to hear him talk about that. Like I used the stat the other day that like Boucher has been like by far has contributed more off the bench than any Raptor ever at this point. He's been a staple of these teams in the same role for a long time and is obviously a guy we like a lot personally.
Yep.
We've all enjoyed as a player. Obviously his backstory and his story at this point, great guy in the community and stuff like that. So to see him, be at this spot where he's like, I get it. DNP CDs. Hopefully, I end up in a better situation if I go. It's a tough part of this whole thing.
Okay, so how do you think Chris got to this situation? Because for me, if you had asked me why Chris is like essentially getting pushed out, it's not really like salary purposes, because the Raptors do like it's not an issue for the Raptors to hold Chris for like $10 million next year. It's not necessarily because he doesn't have the quality to play on this team, because we see the quality of players who play on this.
He's better than guys who are playing.
Come on, man! Like McDaniel's playing over top of him is just crazy. I think the real thing maybe to me is just like Darko wanted to implement this style of ball movement, and Chris's biggest weakness is moving the ball and making the right reads offensively. And if he's going to play as a big, I guess, it's a little bit difficult, because look at the bigs that they like to play, right? It's like Jakob, Jonte, Thad, they're all at the high elbow. They're throwing like nice little high-low passes and stuff like that.
Even Precious before the trade, they would try to use him that way.
Yeah, so and I think that like it's difficult to envision seeing Chris do that role. Is it just like the coaching change happened and all of a sudden he's not as favored? Because I do feel like for Chris, best case scenario for him in terms of how he contributes to a team is if he ends up on a team with like a heliocentric player, somebody who's going to have the ball all the time, controls all the action, and then he can crash around that.
Would be a great fit with Dallas' second unit, for example, because those lineups are either Doncic focused or Kyrie focused, and you can be an offensive glass crusher, a transition runner, and they'll play like an actual center next year.
Right, and I think under Nick, it was like, well, we're pretty much going to play like Fred and Pascal. They're going to operate. Sometimes Scotty's going to operate. But genuinely speaking, it's like more isolation heavy, more pick and roll heavy. The ball's not going to swing nearly as much. And then, yeah, I mean, we just want to send everybody to crash the glass as much as possible. Like, I think when you change the system over, to me, it felt like, okay, it didn't actually change in Chris's favor. But do you think there's any other reasons why they want to push Chris out?
I mean, I think he's kind of been like just wrong place, wrong timeline, I guess, where like
okay.
he is. I think people still think of him as like a younger guy, but he's 30, right? Like, like them re-signing him on his last deal was very happy for him to get that, 3-year deal and get that full money. But it was a little bit more money than we expected. I don't know that we expected him to get 3 years fully guaranteed. At that point, that was like basically the full mid-level, fully guaranteed for 3 years there. So that's part of it. And so I think they do that contract because they were still in that mode of, well, we could win or we could develop. And Chris was a good piece for that because like he could help you win now, but also is a good culture guy and maybe had some upside left. And now that you've moved off of these other pieces, his meme about like being Will Smith, you're the last one left in the Fresh Prince house. Like that is kind of how it feels. Like it feels like this has less to do with Chris the player and Chris the contract value as it does like they have tried to turn the page and there's just an edge of the page catching. Yeah. And it just like, it's more, I guess, symbolic than anything. It's also just, I mean, these things, there's a reason Chris has so many more bench points than anyone else in Raptors history. It's that you just usually have a lot of turnover in those roles. Like it's not normal for a guy to last 6 years as your, fourth big. It just doesn't happen that way. So I don't know. I hope he gets moved because I think he's better than he's gotten to show this year. And I think Chris in an environment where he can be himself a little bit more and kind of, and part of the issue this year too has also been like him playing with players who have redundant weaknesses with him. Like those lineups where he'd play with McDaniels and Achua.
Oh,
it's like you can't do that. That's not going to get the best out of any of those guys. So, so I hope he finds a new spot here.
Damn, I'll miss if Chris does move, I'll miss his just openness, honestly.
Yeah,
in general.
Yeah, like come on the show and air it out. On your
listen, Chris, we'll maybe have to call you tomorrow as well.
Okay, so last one on the Rumour Roundup. We can revisit the Dennis Schroeder, the Wolves monitoring in on that. Michael Grange talked to a league exec who said if they move Dennis, you would be looking at seconds at best. So like I try to warn people in my mailbag, like you're not getting as read.
No,
you're not getting a first.
You gave me the second, and what would you get?
It was a second and a bunch of pieces to make the salary math work.
Right.
Troy,
so like Shake Milton or something like that.
Yeah, Shake Milton, Troy Brown Jr., and Jordan McLaughlin make the salary math work. But you'd also unload McDaniels in that deal, so you're out of his deal for next year.
Great. Wait, he has a player option for next year?
He has a fully guaranteed next year.
He has a fully
Wow. Yeah. So the one thing I wanted to revisit with you on this is I don't know that Minnesota's this desperate for a backup point guard, but when I was looking at the salary matching stuff, one name that I didn't mention who maybe I should revisit. Kyle Anderson makes a little over $9 million. He's a pending UFA.
Oh, yeah.
He has not fallen out of the rotation yet, but he hasn't scored double-digit points since January 14th, and his minutes have dropped off significantly. He hasn't played more than 19 minutes in a game in the last, 8 games. He got a tech off the bench last night for just, whining to the refs that, borderline cost him the game. It is, I don't know how much of this is Wolves fan sentiment on Twitter is sour on Kyle Anderson, but the minutes are down, the scoring is down, the role appears to be down. He's obviously still a good defensive piece. Do you think Minnesota would swap out someone like that? And I'm not framing this because Kyle Anderson is interesting to me as a Raptor. It's just to find something that works for a Dennis trade where, maybe it's not Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton, and Jordan McLaughlin that you're getting back. Maybe you can attach a draft asset to Kyle Anderson. It's still probably only some sort of second, but.
Yeah, okay, so I think there's 2 parts. Number one, from the Raptors side, if you don't have Dennis, who's running backup point for you?
Kyra
Lewis?
Give JFL some touches.
Okay, all right.
Scotty
maybe,
back in the true point guard role a little bit more.
I feel like Darko's been resistant to doing
maybe
that.
you ask for Jordan McLaughlin back in that deal still? Just so you have a backup point guard.
Okay, whatever. So I think, that will open up something where it's you got to address who's going to run your backup point. To the point of Kyle Anderson as a return, the only thing with that is I like Kyle Anderson as well. What I want, the only Chinese NBA player in the league to come on the Raptors. Absolutely. Come to the Raptors league hire. But I think the other part is just he's 30.
Yeah.
So I just it doesn't really fit the timeline. It's like the same kind of issue you already have right now with Dennis and Chris on the roster.
But he's expiring is the thing where those guys aren't. So you're out of the money.
Yeah.
It's not like, look, again, it's not about Kyle Anderson on the Raptors. It's just about I wanted to re-bring it up because I feel like I dismissed that as a Dennis option yesterday when we talked about it.
Okay.
So just wanted to hit on that. But that's about it for the rumors that are out there. Like I said, it's quiet.
It's quiet right now, but hopefully things will come up.
It's bad when even like, so the way these things work at this time of year, obviously Woj and Shams aren't going with stuff unless they're very, very certain of it. Marc Stein, who's going to join us at 3, isn't going with stuff unless he's very, very certain of it. Then there's like the next tier down who will maybe be a little bit more aggressive with rumors versus it being an actual thing. And then you've got like the lower tier down where like it's throw anything at the wall because it doesn't hurt me if I get something wrong, but maybe I could. Even those ones are quiet.
Yeah.
It's oh so quiet.
Creepy.
Derek, I've worked with you 3 years now. I never heard that
That's
one
creepy.
before, man. You got new wrinkles in his bag. All right, well, if it's quiet, then let's actually just talk about the actual basketball stuff.
Okay, you want to take a break first?
So when I take this break, been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. When we come back, we will get Steve Jones Jr. in here to talk actual hoop instead of just trade rumors. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, from Lou. Blake Murphy to my left, and we're going to bring in, through the magic of Zoom, Steve Jones Jr. of the Dunker Spot, joining us on the program once again. Steve, what's going on, man?
Not much. Happy to be here. Excited to be here.
Yeah.
The first domino has fallen. Simone Fontecchio.
That's what we're here to talk about, man. Yeah, break that down for us. The Pistons low-key add more shooting around Cade.
The funniest part about the Pistons season, the subplot of just more shooting over and over and over again.
Yes.
Like, hey, this kind of works. Yeah, Muscala, Gallo, Fontecchio. Yeah, let's do it. More shooting. Let's get it done.
They do
add into that core.
They do give up the draft rights to Gabriel Procida, though. So
tell us about him too.
He's averaging 9 points a game in the EuroLeague. So there's a real cause here. Steve, look, we're joking around a little bit here, but you did have an interesting tweet about kind of the kickoff to deadline season here, and I wanted to ask you to expand on it a little bit. So you said you wonder how much of the shift to acquiring talent via trade in the offseason has changed the trade deadline. Now, we still see a lot of trades at the deadline every year. It's been double digits every year for as long as back as you can track, but it does seem, at least anecdotally, that a lot of the legwork is done in the offseason. There are fewer teams maybe willing to go into the season and have big holes to address this time of year. How do you feel about it? Like you kind of asked it as a philosophical, but I would like your take on your own question there.
Well, it was just a thought I've been sitting on for a little bit. Obviously, the CBA and the second apron have an impact. I trust all of the fine cap folk people to break that down for me personally. It's just felt like teams have wanted to keep their assets, and it's felt like the trade market is stronger in the offseason, and that cap space and those players they have might be more valuable for them from a flexibility standpoint than just pure free agency. And it feels like there's just a little bit less desperation in the air. Now, it's the trade deadline, so we're going to see movement. I wouldn't go that far. But it's just, okay, even I go back to like when the Zach LaVine trade talks or discussion first started, it was no shot at Zach LaVine, who has premier talent. But I was wondering, what context is he going to elevate a team to in this specific season where this league is so competitive? And I just think it's tough for me to understand. I'm trying to balance the shift and realize, okay, maybe teams really believe in what they have and they just want to add to their core, and we can shift later if we need to. But we want to find out what we have now.
So we don't get to do this very often, but let me throw this at you as a purely hypothetical. What if the Boston Celtics gave up 2 second-round picks for Xavier Tillman right now? It just happened, according to Woj. What do you think of that ad for Boston as a depth frontcourt move?
Oh, wow. Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's better than Simone Fontecchio for
Hey, it's Xavier Tillman. I think that's the kind of move they're looking for, to where we can bring someone that has a talent that addresses a potential need, but doesn't take away from our core. We don't have to give up pieces of our core to add to it. So Xavier Tillman should help Boston. Context-wise, how much opportunity is he going to get? That was always my question with Boston, to where, yes, there may be gaps, there may be things you need to fill, but does it change the fact that we are rolling with KP, we are rolling with Al Horford, these are the lineups we're going to play, we just kind of need you to mix into it? I actually, now that I think about it, kind of feels like last year for Boston, where they just had like a bunch of bigs, and it's like, wait, now Blake Griffin's playing. But X he should help him. That's a strong move.
I think it'd be interesting because I don't think Boston was ever fully comfortable with like Nehemias Queta or Luke Cornett.
Portuguese legend, Nehemias Queta.
Yeah.
Derek Brandeo, our technical producer's favorite player, without knowing it.
For sure. No, but I do think it's, I mean, Boston has been looking for that, like, one extra big. I think maybe they were, like, linked to, like, Chris Boucher, but, like, Chris realistically could not have.
They also didn't have the cap
money.
math to make it work, so, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Interesting.
Tillman makes the minimum, so.
I love this, man. Well, in no other context would we have asked you about Xavier Tillman.
We did it.
Okay, so let me ask you this, then. This isn't Xavier Tillman specific, but you've been on the team side. You've been an assistant coach, a video coordinator, things like that. This week or this kind of chunk of weeks here, what is that like for someone in your role who's on the team side and is now responsible for, I'm sure you're watching the Rumours and having fun with that, but like you got to onboard Xavier Tillman now if you are the Steve Jones Jr. of the Boston Celtics, right?
Yes, you are going right to work as far as making sure I have everything ready offensive playbook wise. Here are the calls. Here's the sets. Here's what we run. Here's what you need to do specifically. And then you have the defensive side where, hey, this is our scheme. This is the calls for it. This is our language. Here you go. And that part of it is weird. And there's also the human element where it's like, there's a person that you've like seen every day for the last few months and they're just gone. And here comes someone new and you're trying to integrate them while still doing your job and trying to win games and get better. It gets tricky. It gets tough. But yeah, you absolutely are like, as soon as a trade hits, it's all system go. Probably get a few emails, a few text messages. Hey, can we get this ready? And then you gotta go get it done because you don't know when someone's gonna pop in your office and be like, "Hey, you got that done? You got that done right, bud?"
So okay, hold on. Take us through from the new incoming player side. Like, so what? They just got like 2 giant PDFs in their email, and then they just gotta go through and learn everything in the playbooks.
The best example I can remember is when I was in Memphis and we got Tayshaun Prince.
Okay.
And I had like 5 edits I had to get ready specifically for him. And so it was offense, defense, it was personnel, it was our guys, what they like to do, our spots, our language, our terminology. And so it was just the plays. The little corner had the text on it, like, hey, this is what we're doing. Obviously, you got PDFs, playbooks, all this good stuff that you just have to have ready on deck to hand over and be like, here you go.
Interesting. I like this. We don't talk enough about like the logistics of how an NBA team works and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's one of the great things. Like,
is Tayshaun enough of an old head where you got to hand him like printouts and stuff?
Back in the day, we did a lot of paper. I am so sorry.
Yeah, don't worry. You and Taylor Swift, you'll be next. Sorry, Swifties. What else did you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I have one other before we get into some specific like team stuff.
We talk about Phoenix. We're gonna talk the Jazz.
This isn't really you from the coaching side, but this is you as a basketball analyst. What if you're on a contender right now? What is front of mind for you? Like, obviously, you just kind of laid it out. The way you feel about this trade deadline. Well, there's no, like, even a Zach LaVine level talent. How do you figure out the fit and the context? So we're looking at guys a little further down. Is your priority right now, if you're in a GM chair, hey, it's got to be fit first. They have to fit what we do. They have to fit with the guys we have. Or are you just trying to upgrade talent-wise of like, hey, we're only going to play 8 in the playoffs. We got to make sure that 8 is as good as possible. Or is it more the Celtics style where, like, yeah, I mean, Xavier Tillman probably not playing big minutes in a playoff series, but they got to get there and make sure they get there healthy. What's front of mind for you if you're running one of these ships?
To me, it's fit. And I think when you talk about it in the contender lens, if you're already at that level of success and you have guys that have bought in and understood the mission and you're on the right track, you don't want to disrupt too much of that. So it's kind of like that insurance zone where someone could elevate into that top 8 if needed, but we're not necessarily disrupting what we already have. Trying to patch something up to where you feel better about like the archetype of the player. Like for Tillman, for example, you probably feel better about him defensively to a degree. You probably feel better about the versatility offensively. So, okay, that could help us when we need a big to do this and maybe player X is out or something is happening there. So for me, it's more like find the person that would fit what you guys do and will help elevate you, even if they're not going to get all that run. Unless you can just get like a crystal clear upgrade where I know this is going to be a smash and it's going to really help elevate our team. But I think just in these days, you don't want to give up too much. And now you're really back in the reintegration process.
All right. So let's talk about a couple teams. Phoenix, big win last night over Milwaukee. 1-4 start for Doc. A little awkward. I mean, he's had some injuries. He's had some like difficult schedules to play, but still the banter must flow apparently. But yeah, Phoenix, they look like they're starting to figure it out a lot more. They get the guys back on the court healthy first and foremost, which took a while for those guys. But they look good. 16-6 since Christmas. What are you seeing from the Phoenix Suns, and why is their offense working so well?
Look, I get the concerns with Phoenix. I understand pointing to the record and some of the warts they've shown this season. If you want to raise your hand and talk about the defense, I totally get it. But man, every time I watch them, the high notes that they can hit offensively, the type of shots that they can generate, the pressure they can put on defenses, it's tough. Like if you put your coach's hat on, having to deal with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal in a playoff series, not a lot of fun. So for me, you talk about and you think about like spacing. We talk about spacing a lot. We joked about the Pistons. We talked about it with the Raptors earlier. Think about how many teams have to empty a corner to try and simulate or create some of that pressure. Think about how Phoenix can have one of Booker, Durant, Beal run a pick and roll with the other two on the weak side. That's our pressure. We can put both those guys over there. And I think for me, they just make you make decisions. When you have to send help, when they involve those guys together, it's tough. If Kevin Durant has the ball and Bradley Beal's one pass away and Devin Booker's in the corner and you show help because, oh no, Kevin Durant has a mismatch, the ball is quicker than the man. And that's a swing to Bradley Beal. That's an extra pass to Devin Booker. And now it's an open shot. So when they can go ahead and create those kind of moments where they make quick decisions, that's when it gets really tough for a defense. And that's when it gets really fun for Phoenix.
So where would you like to see that continue to grow? Because I know even in a couple of your live tweets of the game last night, they seem to be couched in a little bit of like, well, Phoenix is still really figuring this out also. Like, it's really good right now. It's really difficult. But these guys, for a big three who they all have a little bit of, maybe Booker less so, but like Beal's played alongside John Wall. Kevin Durant's played alongside everyone because he gets lonely and wants to play with other stars. But like, this is a big adjustment for Booker. This is a bit of an adjustment for Beal. Where do you see even more offensive growth coming for this group or potential for that trio particularly?
The biggest thing for me with Phoenix is just balance. Can you keep your tempo up in the half court? Can you lean into the versatility of your top three players? Keep the movement up. I think let's lean into Bradley Beal playing two-man game with Nurkic, pass and cut, and make the defense react that way. We've seen over this whole Phoenix stretch what Devin Booker can do flying off screens, getting dribble handoffs. Kevin Durant mixing in option screens where, hey, I can go off one way and go to the post, or I can go right to the top and we can keep playing out of it. They can always get to pick and roll, or they can always get to one-on-one or ISO type shots. And that's going to be a part of the package because of the talent they have. But if they have that balance where the blend of these guys have it going, we have to send more help, we have to send more pressure, they can make those type of shots, but we also aren't sure how they're going to get them because of the movement, because of the pace. Hey, throw it in the Nurk. Let's throw a split action. Let's get some movement around it. That's the biggest thing for me. When they play with tempo and they are moving the ball, moving their bodies, usually good things happen. When it gets a little sticky or they lean too much into pick and roll and try and generate it that way, which I understand why, that's where it can get kind of tough.
So I feel like for the starting five, I mean, it's probably not going to change much. I think Nurkic just settled in nicely. He's given them something different than what Ayton has given them, but I think overall he's been pretty good. Grayson Allen has been better than expected. I know it's nasty to think about, but Grayson Allen's been decent. So pretty good, honestly, some games. I just feel like nobody off their bench changes anything other than downgrading the talent on the court. So I guess if you're going into a playoff series, are there like three guys on this bench that you feel confident in? And if not, then should they go out and get, one or two more of those kind of guys? Because you can't just go only with the starting five and be sustainable that way.
I think that's been the tricky part. That was part of my hope for when they were not healthy, that, hey, more of these guys are going to have these opportunities to showcase what they can do, get more comfortable. But I think that's kind of why you need some more of that movement so those guys can do good things. I think the tough part is with the bench point, you're always going to have talent on the floor. But if you're a defense that does signal, we're helping off this person. And the task has to be those guys have to make them pay. So if you're talking three, I could probably get to three, but if you're in a playoff context, because of what they have, Josh Okogie beat us.
Yeah.
Nasir Little beat us. That's the part of the program where those guys are going to have to make enough shots or enough plays, even if it's via cuts, via drives, to where, okay, we're outside of the liability zone offensively, to where we at least can punish you for what you're trying to do.
This isn't specific to the Suns the rest of the way, but I ask you this because he's the one guy. Look, the Suns are leveraged to the tilt in terms of like how much extra money they can take on and these incoming extra penalties and stuff like that. If they're going to make a move at this deadline, it probably involves Nasir Little. He makes $6.3 million. He's got 3 more really affordable years left, but he's basically not playing at all. He's still just 23. He was a guy that I know people liked enough that it seemed like a reasonable bet on that 4-year extension in Portland. If a team were to have something that Phoenix liked and could maybe spruce up their bench, someone in the like $7 million range, is Nasir Little a guy that you like as kind of a new environment flyer for one of these selling teams?
Yes. I feel like Nasir Little would be the piece to get the piece. I think the problem for Nasir Little is just the context of this Suns team.
Okay.
To where I think they believe in the talent. The problem is we need the consistency portion, and we need specific things from people that are out on the floor. And it's not to say he can't do it. It's just we're going for a championship. And sometimes when that happens for a younger player, it can put you in a different place mentally if you're not performing, doing X, Y, and Z. Well, let me throw this person in. I know they're going to play defense at this level. Or let me put this person in. I know we're going to get drives out of that. And so that's where I think it gets tricky for Little and Phoenix. But yeah, if you're another team, that's a young guy on a good contract who you probably could grow and allow to spread his wings a little bit more in a different context. So I'm totally with you there.
Yeah. I think the reason the bench question popped in my mind is I was watching the game last night and I'm like, man, there's a lot of Giannis dunking over Drew Eubanks. Man, is that Bull? And I'm like, these guys should not be.
What happened to Utah?
I was like, yeah, first off, what happened to Utah? But like, I mean, I kind of also know. But these guys shouldn't feature for a team that good. You know what I mean? Like, the starting lineup is so good. And then, yeah, you just get worse and worse when the bench comes in. The Jazz, very deep team. Now, that's a team that has lots of depth. They might even move off some of the pieces. We'll talk to Marc Stein about that in the next hour. But big win last night. They beat the Thunder, which is always impressive.
Chris Dunn giving Shai Gilgeous-Alexander trouble.
Yeah. Is it time? Am I just do I have to clear out so you guys can nerd out about Chris Dunn?
Yeah,
that's like Blake's favorite
later
players.
In the year, Steve, I really do want to do the Chris Dunn All-Stars with you, which is guys who get after it defensively and are just good enough offensively to stay on the floor, but barely. But that's another day. Yeah. Right. Sorry. I had to chest out about Chris Dunn. Will
you did? Yeah. What did you want to ask about the Jazz?
Yeah, I mean, mostly, I'm curious from a player development standpoint and how the Jazz function offensively. Lauri Markkanen has obviously been a really nice story the last 2 years. He's going to continue. He makes like no money next year to trade stuff aside. How a guy like that has been able to turn himself into such a versatile scorer where among forwards, he's near the very, very top in 3-point percentage, 2-point percentage, ability to get to the line and convert his free throws. But one thing that stands out is there's not a ton relative to other stars of self-creation. Will Hardy and the Jazz have created this environment where Lauri Markkanen has basically become a super elite play finisher, but they don't have to ask him to create a ton for himself. How have they been able to get that out of Lauri Markkanen? It's just like, it's kind of contrary to how we normally think of like 22, 23 point a game guys.
I think it ties into the offensive versatility of the Jazz and the way that they use their personnel. Like you mentioned, Chris Dunn, the fact that they can use him as a screener off ball or use him as a hub guy is huge. I think what Will Hardy does such a great job of is he takes his personality, he understands, okay, you guys can do different things. Let me allow you to do those things. You look at the play of Colin Sexton. But tying it back to Lauri Markkanen, it's fun to watch how they're able to use his skill set in different ways. Like Utah overall does a great job of spacing the floor. They use guys in different positions. But the way they run their offense has unlocked that versatility of Markkanen. And so you can play 2 bigs, you can play 1 big, you can play him at the 3. He can fly around off screens. I think that's a huge part of their offense and his success. It can be a big that's screening for him. It could be a guard that's screening for him. He could be spaced. He can knock down shots, but he can drive closeouts, cut, but he uses a screener. I think it's the fact that he's just a little bit of a moving target to that degree, to where his scoring doesn't just come in one way. And defensively, you can't completely lock in on one aspect. So if he's in the corner and they're setting a pin down for him, is he coming off this screen? Is he going to cut back door? Is he going to flow into setting another screen? And now is he going to slip that one? Is he cut into the post, or is he coming off another one? When he catches it off these screens, he does a really good job of, getting momentum. So it's not necessarily always him at the top of the key trying to generate a shot. He's able to get downhill most of these times and now get a paint touch, or I can kick it and move and get another one. That's the fun. That's where I think I credit Utah understanding what Lauri Markkanen does well and just enhancing that.
Yeah. Well, I think this flows to my question because a lot of times I watch the Jazz. Like last night I'm watching the Jazz, and I'm like, man, this team is just so well coached. And there's clearly an identity and a system of play, and they're just plugging in, various pieces into this. But then I'm trying to quantify, like, specifically what is the hallmarks of a good coach in this instance? Like, why am I feeling that he's a good coach? So, I'm going to ask somebody who actually coached. Like, what is it that you see from a coaching perspective that makes this whole thing feel like it's working way better than what it is on paper?
Buy-in. Buy-in will be the biggest indicator.
Okay.
When you see Utah, when they cut, what does it look like? How hard do they work defensively?
Mm-hmm.
How well do they move the ball? Those are going to be hallmarks of, okay, everyone understands what the objective is and everyone is bought into it and playing their style. I think that's why you have to develop relationships and earn that trust so guys know, okay, maybe it might not be my play here, but I'm going to get a touch. Or coach knows who I am, so I'm going to be used, to the best of my abilities.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a guy like Colin Sexton or Jordan Clarkson, you probably have a traditional mindset about what they are as players.
For sure.
But because of the context that Utah has given them, just go do that. Go score, go penetrate, go drive, go play your game. And these shots are acceptable. This will work. As long as you're doing this, we're good to go. I think that's probably the hallmark of the well-coached teams.
The buy-in. Okay, that's the thing, because it's hard to see that. You know what I mean? Like, people always talk about tactics or whatever. It's like, if you don't get them to buy in and really, like, try to run the stuff that you want them to get to, it's almost impossible to evaluate. The other thing that I think you can very easily evaluate based on this, even just rookie season, Keontae George, man. I need your thoughts on Keontae George. Man, this guy looked very comfortable in this game. He's a rookie, but he's knocking on huge shots, pull-up threes. Honestly, a surprisingly good passer as well, too. I think maybe coming in, the scouting report was he's not that good of a passer. He's mostly a scorer. That dude looks really good. And, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Keontae George. Is he a future starting point guard in this league?
Yes. Every time I've seen him play, even going back to Summer League, I was like, hey, this kid's got something.
Yeah.
This guy can play. I don't mean to be basic, but, like, he can hoop.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that pop more and more. It's not just it's the comfort for me that he's developed over the course of the season to take these shots, make these plays. And I think a big key was he played his way into the starting lineup. You kind of felt the pressure that he had in that starting lineup.
Yeah.
And then he moved back to the bench. And now it's like, go play your game. And now you can close games. I think that little subtle shift was huge, but he's a hooper.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that was one of my favorites for who the Raptors could have taken at 13, but we don't want to relitigate this today. But, Steve, we appreciate you.
Not coming off Grady's career high.
You don't want to hear about some of the other career highs of the rookies in this class that were available at 13. But we're going to let Steve go so we can argue in the next 5 minutes there of this break. Appreciate you, man. And, thank you for always taking your time. We're going to take another break here. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. When we come back, Marc Stein on Trade Rumors. Let's go. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Lou. I'm joined by co-host Blake Murphy. And as we do pretty much every Wednesday, Marc Stein joins us on The Raptors Show. Marc, I hope you're feeling a lot better, man. Are you all right?
Honestly, I am, guys. I appreciate that. I finally got myself to some medical care that aided me with some very helpful advice. I do feel a lot better.
Okay, that's good. That's good because I could tell you're feeling a lot better because you've been really hard at work, man. Every single day in my inbox is a new daily newsletter from you at the Stein line and on Substack. And yeah, I mean, it's been great. We literally had 4 newsletters since the last time you came on, and there's lots of details in here about pretty much every single team is mentioned at some point. So We might just have to run down.
Hype me up, man. I love it. You're a great hype man.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not even kidding, man. It's every single day, and I feel like if I just wanted to keep track of just trade rumors in one spot, this is this place for it. And so I've collected a lot of them. I'm just going to run through a lot of that. Obviously, we start here in Toronto. The Bruce Brown thing. I mean, it seems like the latest reporting from Sportsnet's very own Michael Grange is that the Raptors do have a first-round pick offered to them on the table. I'm guessing that it's from New York. But yeah, I mean, I think the curiosity from this week is, could the Raptors potentially be the landing spot for like a D'Angelo Russell if there was a 3-team trade possibility out there? Because I think Dave McMenamin brought that up this week, that obviously the Hawks don't really want Russell back if they were to make a DeJounte Murray trade. Could D'Angelo Russell land in Toronto? I want to start there for you.
Before I go any further, I do feel the need to mention I am hearing an echo, so if our producer pals can do anything to remove that.
We might just need to reconnect with you, Mark, is all, if that's okay with you.
It's fine with me. I'm happy to if you guys want to try that.
Okay,
right,
let's
we'll call him back.
Call you right back, yeah.
Wow, on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Do you want D'Angelo Russell, by the way?
I mean, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. He's got a pretty game, and obviously, I know he's got ties to the city.
He's got a pretty game, yeah.
He has a nice looking game. I don't see.
What are his ties to the city? Can you mention them?
Yeah, his girlfriend's from Toronto, right?
Oakville.
Oakville. Okay.
That's the Oakville, man. We got Mississauga representing. We got Oakville representing.
Yeah.
Man. What's next, man? A Milton connection?
Damn. Cambridge. Yeah, I mean, Pascal's got family in the region.
Yo, listen, man.
Jamal
Murray for the KW connection.
Yeah, there you go.
That'd be the dream.
Yeah,
of course.
It would be the dream for me personally.
Shea for Hamilton. Yeah, we just connect the whole like Lakeshore West goal line.
Get Michael Mulder back in the league for Windsor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. Cool. Yeah. It's like we're like playing Risk.
Yeah, a guy you remember and know, Michael Mulder.
No, he played. Did he play for Team Canada one year?
Yeah, he played for the Warriors for a little bit too.
Yeah.
In seriousness,
you like Russell?
The D'Lo side of things, he does have a pretty game. It'd be one of those ones where like you'd almost have to wait until the offseason to really know, because like he does have that player option, and if I were him and I got traded somewhere that I didn't really want to be, I think you could do pretty well opting out of that and then signing a new deal. But it is almost $20 million, so it's not out of the world that he would pick it up. So I'd need a little bit of clarity on that. He doesn't like ideally fit, the timeline and what the Raptors are doing here, but he's a good player who has like a really aesthetically pleasing game. For a couple months at the end of the year, I could get behind it. It's just, I need to know what the other asset is here, because I don't think turning Bruce Brown into D'Angelo Russell, like, I think it's you're in the same spot as the Raptors. Then it's like, okay, what are you doing with D'Angelo Russell next?
Right. Okay. Let's hear from Marc Stein. Take two. Yeah. Can the Raptors get in on D'Lo?
Well, first of all, damn, the echo's still here, so I guess I am going to have to hear myself twice, which is really painful. So I don't even want to hear myself once. Maybe it went away finally. Maybe we got rid of it. All right, good. Listen, I don't want to give you – I cannot say that I have directly heard Raptors as a potential third team in a DeJounte Murray trade, because honestly, what I would say about that scenario is Atlanta's trying to get 2 firsts, and does that scenario furnish them with 2 firsts? I think that's really the bar that has to be hit first for the Hawks to want to go ahead with the DeJounte Murray deal. And to this point, there hasn't been a scenario where they come up with 2 firsts, and the Lakers only have 1 to play with right now. So I can't sit here and tell you that I've heard that scenario, because I genuinely haven't. I did see the Grange report about if Toronto indeed has a first-round pick for Bruce Brown, then that will come, I think, as a relief, because there hasn't been a lot of noise in the ether suggesting that is looming. So if that's true, I'm sure they'll be thrilled, because it's harder to generate firsts in this marketplace than anticipated. I think you guys probably saw the stat last week where Bobby Marks from ESPN tweeted out about how 11 teams hold 75% of the tradable picks right now. So it's just not that easy to get a first. But, the deal isn't done yet, so they haven't gone through with it. But by the way, I do love when Masai does a press conference and he just says Grange like 5 times in each press conference. That is one of the highlights. But look, I have not. I can't say that I've heard they have it, but
okay.
We will soon see.
We will
And
soon
look,
see.
one thing I did cover today, which I think what you're seeing this week, where we've only seen 2 trades today, and they were very small moves. Fontecchio to Detroit, Xavier Tillman. I reported about a week ago that Memphis was going to trade him, and they have now traded him into a trade exception in Boston. Those are really small moves, though, and I think with what you're seeing and how the action has slowed considerably, I think Toronto does have to feel pretty good that they did the Pascal deal when they did. I think they read it right in mid-January that do this now, because the offers for Siakam are not going to get stronger. 3 firsts is the most that they were going to get at that point, and they were able to get Bruce Brown. They've been trying to trade him ever since. Maybe they will succeed, maybe they won't succeed, but I think they, maybe happy is the wrong word, but relieved to a degree that they've at least had this opportunity to try. And if Mr. Grange's report proves correct and they've got the first, then we will see them cash that in between now and 3 p.m. tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the hope. Well, elsewhere in the Eastern Conference, Milwaukee. So clearly they're on a win or go home kind of like pressure. They've already, dismissed Adrian Griffin midway through the season, brought in Doc Rivers. I think they probably want to upgrade their roster as well. What are Milwaukee's plans? Because you're seeing, Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton come up a lot now in terms of, pieces that could move for the Bucks to get the upgrades that they clearly want for this year.
Yeah, they're definitely being very aggressive. They're as aggressive as any team in the league right now. I reported earlier this week that there were some exploratory talks between the Mavericks and the Bucks that would have featured Bobby Portis and Grant Williams switching teams. But swiftly after I published that, it was relayed to me that the Bucks would not do that as a straight-up deal. They would only trade. Look, to do something substantial, Milwaukee has to trade Portis, which I don't think they want to do. Obviously, Portis played on their championship team. He's a really well-respected veteran there. He's got a pretty sizable locker room presence. I don't think the Bucks want to trade Bobby Portis, but their only substantial salaries to trade, Portis is making shy of $12 million. Pat Connaughton makes about $9.5 million. They're going to have to trade them if they want to get something in terms of a significant salary back. Again, in the Dallas talks, they would have wanted more than Grant Williams, and I don't think the Mavericks were amenable to that, so I don't see that progressing and becoming serious. But just the fact that Milwaukee has been willing to entertain some Bobby Portis discussion, I think that tells you kind of how seriously they're canvassing the market to try to find upgrades. They know they need defensive upgrades. And the reason maybe Grant Williams would have made sense, even though Grant Williams has had a very disappointing year one in Dallas, but he does have the potential to guard a wider variety of positions. And I think that's why he would have held some intrigue. But again, the Bucks are not doing that one for one. But the Bucks have no firsts to trade. And so I think the Bucks would be a Bruce Brown team. The Bucks have interest as well in Dorian Finney-Smith. But if you don't have a first, you're not getting those guys. And the best pick that Milwaukee has to trade is a Portland second rounder, which is, projected to land somewhere in the 35 range.
When it comes to prospects who were recently picks, how much are we talking like once the car comes off the lot, the value drops kind of scenario? Because I look at, the Bucks don't have any picks, but to me, number 36 pick last year, Andre Jackson Jr., 4-year affordable, very, very affordable and team flexible contract, has given them a little bit. Like, how much does the value on an Andre Jackson Jr. differ from one of the, say the Bucks had their 2024 first, which would obviously be very, very late in the first round? What is the value on guys like that this time of year?
I think it's a team by team, eye of the beholder kind of evaluation. I think, you guys brought up Dallas. I think the Mavericks are in the same position. The Mavericks only have one first, but they have Jaden Hardy in his second year. They have Omax Prosper, who has barely played this season, but in June was the 24th pick. How do teams feel about those guys? I think pretty much we could go through rosters all over the league and identify guys like that. And then it just really becomes how each individual team and their front office rates that player. But yeah, I mean, look, again, this is all, it all feeds into this scarcity of first round picks. And the Lakers and DeJounte Murray, that's probably been as big a curiosity in the past 3-4 weeks as any trade topic since Pascal was traded to Indiana. And what has largely scuttled that is if the Lakers, right now they only have one first round pick, but if they show patience and they have 3 at the draft, it just increases their optionality. And the Lakers are by no means the only team in that position. And so I think that's why, if Toronto gets the first for Bruce Brown by tomorrow at 3 p.m., I think they're going to feel pretty damn good, because it's just not easy to generate one in this marketplace. I would have thought when they made the trade, when the Siakam trade went down, didn't think it was going to be as much of a struggle as it appears. Now, maybe they've played it out. Maybe they've wanted to make it look like a struggle. We'll be a lot smarter on Friday when the deadline sounds, and then we get more reporting that is not being made available right now.
That's
but
right.
It's I thought Bruce Brown would have been traded by now, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's made for great content because never said his name so many times on this program until that trade happened, and now it's a daily fixture. Okay, over, in terms of the other contenders, now obviously Philadelphia has a huge question as to how long is Embiid going to be out for. This is the most I've learned about meniscuses in the last week. It's is he going to have it removed? Is he going to have it shaved? It's a whole thing. But in any case, maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't come back for the rest of the season. And if he does come back, that's going to be a huge variable. But yeah, the Sixers obviously always can be very aggressive under Daryl Morey. He's always been a guy who has made trades at the deadline. What could the Sixers look to do?
I reported today that they are one of the teams pursuing Andre Drummond. That's a long line right now, though. I think there are a lot of contenders that would love to get Drummond. His rebound numbers, particularly at the offensive end, have just been sensational in limited minutes. He's not even playing 20 minutes a game, but he's really inhaling rebounds right now. So Philly, obviously Drummond would help them in the short term, with Embiid presumed to be, there's no specific timetable yet on Embiid, but you have to think just common sense wise that 6 to 8 weeks just seems like a safe assumption if we're allowed to assume such things from the outside. But the Sixers also want a shooter, and Bojan Bogdanovic is a guy who's oft mentioned. I don't know, man. The Pistons continue to send these signals that they're not trading Bojan Bogdanovic, which, if he stays there 2 deadlines in a row, that's just, I find it baffling. Jake Fisher reported last night that the Sixers are looking at Buddy Hield too. And, Buddy Hield is another guy on an expiring contract. And frankly, the Pacers have been, I think pretty open to Hield trades all season, but increasingly so in recent days and weeks because Hield's role has been diminished somewhat. So, I think we can expect Philly to do, to make a move or maybe even 2 around the edges. But interestingly, the Sixers also have tax concerns, so they're trying to dodge the tax. But Daryl Morey has never had trouble being active at the deadline. So with the Sixers, always expect action.
Speaking of tax situations, and I appreciate the Golden State Warriors every new CBA basically teaching the entire NBA fan base about, hey, how do the very upper echelons of the luxury tax and aprons and things like that work? So they're looking at a situation where they're trying to continue to win now. They have these astronomical tax bills. Further complications to building your roster are coming to where it sounds like they're leaking that there's actual interest in Andrew Wiggins out there, given despite his contract status. Man, what do you have a read at all on where the Warriors are going to go here? This is a weird situation competitively, financially, and emotionally with the way the season's gone for the Warriors.
Look, on Wiggins, I can only talk about my reporting. Mm-hmm. And yesterday I reported that the Mavericks reported interest in Andrew Wiggins has been overstated. After I published that report, word was relayed to me that the same holds for Milwaukee. I don't believe the Mavericks or the Bucks to be in on Wiggins at this point. What I have heard is, Golden State has obviously been exploring every conceivable trade option with Wiggins for at least a month. I think that will continue up to the deadline, but I think the Warriors also understand it's year one of a 4-year deal, and Wiggins, since the 2022 finals, it's more than a season now that he's been well shy of that level. It just doesn't make for ideal circumstances to try to trade him at this point. And so I think you could also, if you analyze it, you look that sorry, I lost my train of thought there. He's with Kuminga. Kuminga has just been a monster lately, and I think has validated how many times have we heard Kuminga's untouchable. The Warriors won't entertain it. Don't even try. I mean, he's been sensational since the calendar flipped to 2024. And Draymond Green has played very well since he came back from suspension. And I think Wiggins playing with the both of them, it has gone better here lately. Do the Warriors, is their best option at this point just trying to keep Wiggins for the short term, get through this season, reassess when the offseason comes? I would argue that that is probably better than what they're going to be able to get in a trade. I don't think it's reached the point that they have to throw in a first to trade him, but you're not trading Andrew Wiggins without taking back contracts that you probably don't want. So why do it? What is really the appeal there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. My thinking of all this was, is he a negative asset? Because, I mean, the last time Wiggins was traded, he was a negative asset. That's how he got on the Warriors. And, of course, he played a lot better, won the championship, all that kind of stuff. So that clearly will change some things. But his career kind of goes up and down like that. A team I'm curious about is Utah, because when I watch Utah, they have so many productive players. And a lot of them don't necessarily fit the right timeline. And, of course, Danny Ainge has already been, a guy who has kickstarted that rebuild by making those two big moves with Mitchell and Gobert. Is Utah a seller, or are they I guess they're not a buyer. Are they a seller at this deadline right now? Because
they're 100% a buyer at this. I'm sorry, 100% a seller at this point. I misspoke.
Okay.
And I'm quite happy with the Jazz, because I reported when I posted my story today that you so beautifully hyped up for me, and the check is in the mail. I said Utah is guaranteed to make at least one trade this week, and about an hour later they traded Simone Fontecchio to Detroit. So the Jazz are in my good graces as we speak. But yeah, no, it's really interesting because Chris Dunn is such a good defensive guard. Multiple teams would love to try to acquire Chris Dunn. Kelly Olynyk, we've been talking about his availability for literally weeks. I mean, he's a floor spacing big man, a veteran who's been around the block. He has no shortage of teams that are interested in him. I still think there's a level of interest in Jordan Clarkson around the league, although this year, Clarkson's contract, it's really next season when it dips below $15 million and becomes much more attractive. So is a Jordan Clarkson trade going to happen by tomorrow, or is it going to have to wait until the draft? But yeah, I mean, I think Utah's phone is literally ringing off the hook. They have multiple players who a lot of good teams around the league want. And it's really interesting because they've also got, the various young players that they're going forward with and building around, not just Lauri Markkanen and Keontae George. And I mean, they've got some really good things happening there. Colin Sexton is another one where I think in the summer it was assumed that Utah was going to look to trade him. His numbers as a starter have been fantastic. So I would imagine that, the price point on a Colin Sexton trade has risen. I mean, again, Utah is truthfully as fascinating a team as there is at this deadline.
Okay. I also wanted to ask about the Nets, because the other team that's a little confusing to me what are they doing? Are they sellers as well?
Because there's skepticism the Raptors will get a first for Bruce Brown. They think they're going to get a first for Dorian Finney-Smith.
Yeah,
Well, Dorian Finney-Smith's only in year 2 of a 4-year deal, and you know what? I think they will be proven. Now, when it was 2, the talk was 2 firsts for Dorian Finney-Smith. I think that was outlandish.
That's absurd, man. Come on.
But do they get a first now for Dorian Finney-Smith, or do they wait and trade him in the summer or at the draft? I actually think that is a defensible and believable stance. Royce O'Neal, the talk is more that, okay, will they relent on Royce O'Neal and trade him for 2 seconds rather than a first, or multiple seconds, whatever it is, depending on how serious the bidding. I think Royce O'Neal and Spencer Dinwiddie are more likely to move than Dorian Finney-Smith at this point. But yeah, I mean, to me, Cleveland, so much talk is, can they re-sign Donovan Mitchell? Can they keep Donovan Mitchell? Royce O'Neal is one of Donovan Mitchell's best friends on earth. So if I'm the Cavs, I'm trying to get Royce O'Neal by tomorrow.
That would be smart. I mean, he would fit nicely into what they got going on. I mean,
they want a 3-and-D player anyway. Why not get a guy who's going to make Donovan Mitchell happier about where he plays?
Yeah. Also, the Cavs are 14-1 in the last 15. It's one of the biggest surprises of the season, especially given all the injuries. And then the last question, I guess, maybe bigger picture. If we step aside from all the teams, it's like, do you feel like is there one potential player that's like, quote unquote, holding up the market in terms of once that trade is done, the other trades will kind of fall? The rest of the dominoes will fall. Is that kind of a scenario that could be playing out or no?
No, I think the truth is it's just the answer that we don't want to. I'm pretty sure we covered this ground the last time I was with you guys, but I don't totally remember. But look, this is my 31st trade deadline in the NBA, and I know how it goes. If today and tomorrow don't deliver fireworks, everyone is going to say this trade deadline sucked.
Yeah.
And on Friday, everyone's going to say it was a dud, wasted our time, blah, blah, blah. How can you say that, though, when we've had, before today, put today aside, we've had 6 trades before today. Included in those 6 trades, James Harden on Halloween, OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam and Terry Rozier, all traded. If we rewind just not even 2 weeks before the season started, Damian Lillard was traded to Milwaukee. Drew Holiday was in that deal, and then Portland turned around and traded Drew Holiday again. So we've actually seen a lot of stuff, and that to me is the factor. Like you're just in-season trades are harder than off-season trades, but we've already seen a bunch.
Yeah,
and so we're not just going to get infinite trades because we all love the transaction game, and that's what we want. And then remember, if you go back a year ago, Kyrie and Kevin Durant got traded in a 4-day span right before the deadline.
Oh, yeah. That was fireworks.
Had we talked a week before that, nobody would have projected either of them getting moved. So, I mean, I think a dose of realism is needed here. We've seen a lot of trade moves.
Yeah, but, Mark, this is you're absolutely right. Like, for sure, that's all reasonable. But, this is like July 4th, I suppose, for NBA fans. It's like trade deadline. All we want to do is sit in front of our laptops, our phones, or whatever, our Vision Pros, I guess, if you can do that now.
I totally agree.
All we want to see is fireworks on the timeline. We want to see you tweet about transactions, Woj, Shams. Like, all we just want to be like, oh, wow, this happened. It's like watching a fireworks display. It really is.
I always tell the story that NBA life for a media person, as I knew it, it changed. I'm doing this off the top of my head, and it was either 07 or 08. I was at ESPN, and Earl Boykins got traded, and I broke the story, and it was, I can't remember, was it Earl Boykins to Denver? It was a January trade.
All right.
Earl Boykins was the headliner. And my editors at ESPN came to me and said, you will not believe the traffic that story just did.
Really? Okay.
And from that moment is when, like, I really started tracking it, that just like, in this league, the transaction game, it's just, we cannot deliver enough and talk about it enough. And it is what fascinates people.
Yeah. That's why you got to listen to hashtag This League Uncut. It's another promo. It's another promo. But Mark, we appreciate you. Thank you for coming on to go through the trade landscape as it is, and we'll see what happens tomorrow because we will have a 3-hour show. So NBA executives, please make as many trades as you want during that.
23 hours to go to see if the Raptors get a first for Bruce Brown.
I can't wait. It's a great saga.
Net 5-9.
There you go, Marc Stein. Appreciate
giving
him
us the
joining
promo back.
Yeah. By the way, that trade he's talking about, Earl Boykins traded to Milwaukee in 2007.
Okay.
Remember that? He was in Denver for a while, and then he went to Milwaukee. By the way, I don't know if it's because Earl Boykins was obviously he's like famously like a very small player played in the league. I don't know if it was because he was small or because he liked to wear baggy shorts. But the shorts to leg ratio was never more. Anyway, he just looked like he was wearing gigantic capris every single time.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, that was the style the style at the time.
Yeah,
as they say.
I feel like Earl Boykins had like a big game against the Raptors one time. I remember watching it just like in like complete, disbelief. I'm like, how is he doing this? He's 5'6".
Yeah,
and he's cooking us.
That's I mean, I don't know, man. There's a lot of bad players, or I guess not even bad, just like there have been some moments in the franchise.
Yeah, I'm going to look for that during the break. But I think one thing I actually want to...
be on Earl Boykins mixtapes.
Honestly, I might look it up. That's like a 240p era of YouTube is Earl Boykins mixtapes. The one thing I want to ask you, too, because I was thinking about Utah, and I guess we talked about Utah in 2 segments here with Steve and with Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Utah looks like the best case scenario in terms of like if you pivot towards a rebuild and you want to just rebrand the whole idea, what it would look like in terms of just like, right now, they're only 500, but they're a very competitive 500.
Right.
They got a new coach to come in. He clearly gets an identity. Any player that essentially any player he puts in the rotation, whether they're young, whether they're older, whether they've played, in a different role, position before, they come here to Utah and then they actually start becoming quite productive. Like, I even don't mind what John Collins is doing for them, for example, right?
Yeah.
And Colin Sexton, they've got to the big example of that is Lauri Markkanen. They turn him from like a starter guy to like, oh wow, he's like a all-star level player. That's kind of what I wanted to see from a rebuild. Of course, they also timed it right. They hit the market right. They got the most they could get from Mitchell. They got the most they could have got for Gobert. But I think on the coaching side too, that's what I would have liked to see from Darko. Maybe not just this year, but maybe going forward as well. Is like you bring in a system, you bring in a style of play, you get that buy-in as Steve Jones was talking about, and all of a sudden you get to a position where everybody you bring into the doors in Toronto looks good, and then you give yourself that position where you have the flexibility to trade deadline to say, okay, we can move these other guys for more and more assets. Because if I had to guess who was going to be the next like OKC style of team, probably be Utah.
Yeah, it might. And look, they're doing the, Markkanen is not Shea, but that kind of like, hey, we're going to rebuild, but you don't have to sell every single piece because eventually you're going to be searching for a guy who's as good as Lauri Markkanen or as good as Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Like there were people who wanted OKC to trade Shea away as part of their teardown because it was like, oh, he was a couple years older than these picks are going to be. And like, how crazy would that have looked now?
Yeah.
Because
you think the age gap between Shea and Chet is bigger than the age gap between Pascal and Scottie?
No, it's smaller, but it was a conversation that people had.
That's wild, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had that conversation too, but it was purely to try to get Shea to Toronto.
Yeah. Oh, every Shea conversation is
predatory.
facetious on this show.
Yeah.
You know that, yeah.
Yeah, I have no shame when it comes to Shea.
Yeah. No, but seriously, like they bring in guys who didn't even feel like they had that much value. They bring them in, and all of a sudden they rehab their value, and now they're about to move them out for more.
Yeah. It's
it's perfect synergy between the front office and the coaching.
It's a very like Tampa Bay Rays baseball style thing where it's like, okay, there's a running joke of like, oh, I love this trade for the Rays. Who did they give up? Who did they get? It's like you just love it for them because you know they're going to net value on it. Now, I wouldn't go that far with the Jazz, but like, yeah, that's a team that like, if you looked at that team on paper 3 years ago, like, yeah, they're bad. They're not.
No.
And like Will Hardy, obviously, we've given him, shout outs on this show before. Yeah. He's coaching a really good team there this year. But yeah, I don't know. It's what you want to get back to organizationally because it's like obviously you create value by hitting on draft picks, finding guys below the draft slot, finding good free agents, below their value or whatever, or young players before they break out. But the other thing is you can manufacture extra value on your build. And like, that's not to say that if the Raptors had done the same thing with Jordan Clarkson is a part of the future. But if you pay a second for someone and then turn around and a year later trade them for 3 seconds, say, you just magically created 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And that stuff adds up over time, even if no single one of those moves is really going to, like them turning around and trading Chris Dunn right now, in addition to getting me to not watch the Jazz anymore. It wouldn't be like, oh my God, this changed the direction of the franchise, but it would be you took a 10-day guy and turned him into a good enough player that you could turn around and trade him for something.
Exactly. In the infamous words of Prop Joe, buy for $1, sell for $2. That hit. It's hard to do the Baltimore accent.
The voice?
Yeah, I know. It's impossible this week.
I'm not even going to try it.
We're going to do the last break for today. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. When we come back, around the NBA. Welcome back to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Lou. Me and Blake Murphy are going to go around the NBA. And, of course, I forgot, but there's a Raptors game tonight. Raptors Hornets.
That's right.
You excited?
So in preparing this segment, not only did I remember that there was a Raptors Hornets game tonight, let me rewind here. So yesterday we're at Rivoli for this Raptors Republic event.
Yeah.
And I see the news that Fred's not going to play this week against the Raptors. He has an adductor strain. He's going to be out a handful of games. This isn't just Toronto, but he's not going to play on Friday.
Although he was in Indiana yesterday.
I'd imagine he'd travel. I don't think it's like that big, but he's not playing.
Yeah, no, he had a nice little hug with Pascal.
Nice.
After the game. Pascal played great, by the way.
Yeah.
Almost a 30-point triple-double, and they needed all of it in a very close win over Houston.
Yeah, some fun games last night. It was kind of like zooming through to try. Like once I left the event, I locked in on OKC Utah because that one was in the middle of the third quarter at that point, and then tried to catch
listen to this man's dedication. He left the event with friends and went straight home to watch Utah.
I walked home. It's about a half an hour walk, and I looked like one of those guys with the VR headsets that we're seeing videos of where they're like walking into traffic and stuff.
That VR headset for Elite Pass though?
Oh. Because I was walking home like this. There's no difference, really. I'm walking home like this with headphones in, like, locked him up.
People on the street were like, what does that mean? And you're talking about Chris Dunn the whole time?
Yeah. So anyway, the Fred news comes down, and this was how I remembered that yesterday was only Tuesday, because I thought the Rockets game was today. And somehow the deadline was still tomorrow. Anyway.
Don't worry, man. We'll talk Bruce Brown again tomorrow somehow.
With all of this, the other thing, they play the Hornets again still.
Yeah.
They just, man, I guess it's nice because it's the only chance you're going to get to win a lot down the stretch here. But they've already played 2 pretty ugly games against the Hornets, and they have them again on March 3rd after tonight.
Yeah. See, this is the first time all year I'm pulling up tankathon.com for the reverse standings because, Raptors might need to lose this one against Charlotte because, the standings at the bottom are quite tight. Yeah, Charlotte is at 10-39. I mean, okay, Toronto's already at 17 wins. Do you think Charlotte finished with 17 wins?
No.
Okay, so maybe we don't have to pull up the Tankathon standings.
But you can at least catch Portland for 5th last. It's like if you are someone who cares about these things, Toronto is currently in 6th to last, which will give you, assuming no tiebreaker, about a 46% chance at keeping your own pick.
Yeah.
If you could catch Portland for 5th to last, that would, I don't have the numbers handy, but it would bump you up to about a 65% chance, roughly. Don't quote me on those numbers, but it's something like it jumps from like 46 or 47% to like 60, something in the mid 60s percentage wise.
I'm looking at it right now. You're about slightly over 60, almost 65%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Versus being just below 50%. So that's a big swing spot if you could catch Portland.
See, but the thing, okay, maybe this is...
If you want to keep the pick is the other thing.
That's the thing. If you want to keep the pick, which is one discussion, that's mostly based on how much you feel like the quality of the draft is going to be this year. The other part to me is just like, I don't think the Raptors are like explicitly trying to lose every individual game in the way that it's like the true tanking. I think what they want to see is like, okay, you got to this point where it's like clearly that's not an ideal spot, but you still want to use the rest of the season to see how these young guys take their opportunities, how they grow together, and like if they start winning, if they actually pull together like really a good string of results, like I don't think their front office is going to come in and like essentially rest certain guys or whatever. Like this is a very important time for these young guys to actually take their opportunity. And whatever, if it doesn't happen, if it isn't taken, they lose, fine. You probably benefit from it anyway by increasing your lottery odds. Mm-hmm. But I think in general, what they really want to do is just like see these young guys actually take the team over and like build it towards something that I can actually win, you know?
Front
like a
off-
Utah situation.
Yeah, front offices tank, players don't tank, and like once you're on the court, no one is trying to not win that
But,
game.
do you feel like the front office is tanking? I mean, yes,
no,
of course
I'm
they're
just
moving
saying that
pieces.
like the
but,
way
like,
these things cascade is like, yeah, the front office is reorienting around a future timeline, if you
Okay.
prefer that framing. And then, yeah, I think like if a guy is on the borderline of being able to play, you be extra cautious. And that's not because you're tanking. It's because there's not as much incentive to push those things. But the more important thing, and you know, I know some people just like reply to injury updates with the tanking stuff because it's fun or whatever. That's where the rooting interests are. But like in reality, Grady Dick is 20 years old. Scotty Barnes is 22 years old. Those guys are in there every day anyway. But like RJ Barrett as a 23-year-old playing a new role in a new system is not being sat to tank. Like that, the value of that is not as high as the developmental value of RJ playing and building the chemistry with Scotty, or quickly building the chemistry with Scotty, seeing exactly how much quickly can expand the scoring load before you have to pay him this offseason. Those things matter more than like we have a 0.01% less chance of winning this game, which gives us a 0.01% better chance of keeping our pick. Like that's not the stuff that happens. Like if you, talk to me if like Jakob's sitting out games at the end of the season for rest or whatever. But it's not happening with the guys who are like 24 and under.
Yeah, I think, for example, that OKC game, they wanted to win that game. Yeah. Absolutely. And it wasn't like we want to win it and it might affect our lottery odds or whatever. Like they're not being like, damn, we won that game. And then they're not being like, yay, we lost the Pelicans game. Like they want to see competitive basketball from these young guys, and if they can find a way to win. Because if the struggle is not right now, it's going to be next year and beyond. So they're going to get to that point eventually. But anyway, you want to do around the NBA?
Yeah. Let's do a little bit of around the NBA before we circle back to that game. Okay. Let's save the PJ Tucker stuff for tomorrow in case we need trade deadline stuff. But him saying I'm actively trying to get traded is a really funny thing. Okay, we hit the Fred thing. Let's do All-Star stuff because we found out who the dunk contest group is yesterday.
Yeah.
Reportedly, so Shams has put this out there and other people have reported the names individually, but the class appears to be Jaylen Brown, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Jacob Toppin, the brother of Obi Toppin.
I have to look it up just to be sure, but yes.
Westchester Knicks legend. And Mac McClung. How you feeling? Is Jaylen enough star power to have one, like the format of one star, one cool rookie that people know, and two fringy guys? Is that enough for you?
I feel like, I'm not trying to disrespect these G Leaguers, but like the dunk contest All-Star weekend should be largely for the NBA players. Like there should be a delineation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I know Mac did a good job last year. He should be invited to repeat. I have not seen Jacob Toppin dunk, so maybe he comes in and just wows everybody. But like, this is the NBA All-Star weekend, man. And two of the four are G Leaguers.
So when there was an actual G League also, and there's a G League next up game this year.
Yeah,
but when back when it was in Toronto and there was an actual G League All-Star game and a G League dunk contest, I really like the idea of the G League dunk contest winner gets the 4th spot in the NBA dunk contest.
Okay, I'm even fine with that to some degree.
Spot, like it helps build the G League. A guy has clearly earned his way in there.
But 2 of 4.
2 of 4. And like the third one, like Jaime Jaquez is a very good player and like cool story on the Heat and stuff like that. But like he doesn't have the there's not a ton of name value there. And we talked about this the other day going through some old dunk contests. Like it is hard to strike the right note if you're trying to build future stars, but also have some star power in it and also make sure the dunks are really good. Like I think Jaquez being in it is cool. It just
I agree, yeah.
The Jacob Toppin, I had to triple check that they weren't like, do you mean Obi Toppin again?
Yeah, look, I'll watch it. You know, I'm going to be there no matter what.
But I also like with these G League guys being in it, I do feel like the Wesley Snipes crying shooting meme where I'm like, too many G League guys in the dunk contest.
If Blake's even saying that, you know it's too many.
Yeah, like Jacob Toppin's played 4 NBA minutes this year.
It's more than what Mac did last year. But Jaylen Brown, though, I think he's the first All-Star since 2017.
Okay.
Or maybe, I think, Mitchell was in it, but maybe this was before Mitchell even made All-Star. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a minute. That part of it's cool.
I'm excited. I mean, what do you think Jaylen Brown's going to do?
Dribble with his left hand?
Oh, my God.
That's not an original. That's not a very original joke, but it does feel.
I'm holding up a 10 right now, man.
Yeah.
Nice burn. Good burn.
Here's a question for you: how do we get back to because for a long time the Raptors were like the dunk contest team, right? Like you had Vince, you had T-Mac, You had DeMar in it. Terrence Ross won. Jamario Moon was in it.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell throws the Vince jersey on to do his. It feels like it's been a while. And then like in the Kyle DeMar, like DeMar did it early in his career, and then Kyle did the 3-point contest, but those did not go particularly well.
Do not mention what Kyle Lowry got in a 3-point contest one year, please.
How do we?
He turned that 6 upside down. It's a 9 now.
Yeah. Ugh.
Oh, that was tough. That was a tough one. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, apparently those money balls, the scuffs on the balls after Kyle shoots around with them, no good. How do we get back to the Raptors having a bit of a presence here, dunk contest or 3-point contest?
That's a good point, honestly, because as you mentioned, there's a great lineage of great Raptors dunkers. Yeah. And like when you look at the Raptors' current roster, like who would you say is the best dunker? Like if War had actually thrown out that dunk against Atlanta, I think, in one of those games, that would have been cool. But like I don't know, every team's got a War level dunker. I think
Yeah.
Scotty, your best dunker? He's a power dunker.
No one is going to want to hear this right now.
Why?
It's probably McDaniels.
McDaniels is your best dunker.
I think so.
All right. Well, we'll see if he's able to get the dunk off around Jose Alvarado with the steal.
Yeah.
That should be the dunk contest dunk is Jose Alvarado pops out from the corner and steals the ball.
Yeah. All you have to execute is a baseline out of bounds, like cut to the rim and just like dunk it for 10, and you get 10 points if you do it. But Jose Alvarado's around.
You think Marquise could dunk? If Marquise could pull like some Spud Webb stuff, that'd be kind of sick.
I don't think he can. I think
I've
looked
seen
it up.
footage of him dunking.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like somebody threw. I think Ron Harper Jr. threw him a lob in like where the Shooting Stars played. I forget the facility, but in Scarborough. But yeah, I think someone threw him a lob. Okay. But it's not like Spud Webb where he was able
not
to
in a game.
No. It was in like a open tryout. Well, not even open tryout. I don't know, open practice type of setting.
Okay. Yeah. That'd be cool to see.
It would be cool to see. Always love short guys dunking too.
Yeah.
Shouts to Earl Boykins. Second shout out today.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess Quickly could definitely do the 3-point contest with his 3-point percentage, right?
Yeah. Ahmed Mon has put in our producer Ahmed has put in the chat. Marquise can dunk in capital letters. All right.
We
need to find the footage, man.
I just YouTube searched Marquise Noel dunk and nothing comes up. So this is like it's weird that this has not like been on my radar and nothing comes up on YouTube.
Okay.
So I believe you guys.
Dunk?
I believe you guys.
Have you ever seen Fred dunk?
Have I seen it? No, but I believe it. I believe it. If I have seen Kyle dunk, so
yeah, we all see Kyle. Kyle used to go up there and actually do some things. But Ahmed has actual video. Yeah. This is the exact facility.
Okay.
Good. We have on the record that Marquise Noel can dunk.
Uh-huh.
Any other All-Star details?
So there we don't know the specifics yet, but the skills competition stuff is going to be in a team format this year where one of the teams is 3 Pacers. So we'll have a little CanCon with Benedict Mathurin. I think Miles Turner and Tyrese are the team. Did I see that right? Am I remembering? I should have researched.
So you tell me Miles Turner can't go to like the Bahamas for a week because he's going to do the skills challenge?
Yeah. No, he's got to build a Lego for someone to dunk over. And then another one of the teams is 3 number 1 picks.
Oh, okay.
It's Banchero, Wemby, and I don't know. And Anthony Edwards are going to team up as you could tell my excitement level here. I don't know.
I was just saying, like,
it is Halliburton, Turner, and Mathurin, by the way, and then the 3 number 1 picks. So we don't know what the format's going to be or what the other teams are, but they're at least trying to mix that event up.
How can they make the skills challenge cooler? Like or harder?
Replace it with something else?
Like, no. Okay, obviously you're right. Ideally, they don't have to just do this like dribble park.
The NHL runs into this too, where like we just had All-Star Weekend here, and the skills like it's cool when you can really like sitting there and being like, oh, that's a really talented thing to do. Yeah. That's hard, but like when 8 guys do it in a row is where it's like, okay, this is lost.
So the NHL All-Star Weekend is a good example of this week because like they have things that even me as someone who doesn't even like hockey, like. I genuinely find fascinating. Like, when they do the hardest slap shot, like that's cool. Like, I want to know who has the hardest slap shot. Or when they do the thing where they go 1-on-1 against like a penalty shootout and they pull out some creativity and stuff like that. Like, I don't get a sense of a player's skill when I see their skill challenge. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see, oh man, he did that thing. He was so skilled. Like, when I see a guy win the 3-point contest, I'm certainly like, yes, that's a skill that he's demonstrating. But like, let me do something in that skills challenge that actually demonstrates like a breadth of skill, you know what I mean?
This is where like I think the only way to do it would be like you have to have random obstacles. Like you have to have Jose Alvarado is behind one of these things and bursts out at you, or like Yeah, I don't know. Like
Yeah,
like
I
a stationary crossover with nobody around doesn't wow us,
Dude, throwing
right?
a ball through a hoop, like, man,
Yeah.
this ain't summer camp, man.
Honestly, the funnier thing to do, the better thing to do with the skills challenge is make all of us do it.
Okay, well,
Get the media out there.
It would be a challenge for all
S
of us.
is going. He can do it. He could be Toronto's representative.
I've seen how challenged the skills were in a recent commercial.
Yeah, air ball.
Yeah.
Air ball. All right. Time now for Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers.
There you
Take
go.
a chance. We'll save some of the other NBA. We got a 3-hour show tomorrow. It's 1 to 4
don't
p.m.
worry. Yeah.
So we'll save some of that for tomorrow. The Raptors are 7.5-point favorites tonight, which was pretty surprising. So this is the biggest, this is the heaviest favorite they have been in a road game since April of last year when they played the Hornets twice in a row. They were 15.5-point favorites in both of those, and they covered in both of them.
That's Fred's 2020 against Bryce McGowan.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bryce McGowan, who came up at the event last night.
I know.
So little injury report. Gary Trent Jr. left last game with low back tightness. He's probable for tonight.
Okay, good.
Jonte has been upgraded to questionable with the back spasms he's been dealing with. The G League guys, except Marquise Noel, are all up. Noel's still dealing with the hamstring issue. On the Hornets side, LaMelo Ball remains out, obviously. Mark Williams remains out with a back injury. So two big losses there. Kyle Lowry is not with the team. Gordon Hayward, Cody Martin, and Frankie Smokes are all questionable as well. So in addition to the Hornets...
Frankie Smokes is still there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's got a right hip impingement.
Wow, I didn't know he was still in the league. Good for him, man.
Yeah, he's... Man, James Herbert...
That's a genuine surprise to me.
James Herbert had a great piece up at CBS Sports Today talking to Garrett Temple about being on who he played for so often.
Yeah.
Frank Ntilikina would be a sneaky one. He has played 5 games this year for the Hornets.
Damn. Yeah, good for him.
Around injuries. So that's the injury report on the Hornets side.
Right.
There's also, look, it's the Wednesday night before the trade deadline. It is entirely possible that, especially with these two teams, there's a mystery scratch later tonight. We just don't know it yet. Raptors 7.5-point favorites right now. Before I ask for your take here, last game, this is who the Hornets start.
Oh, I actually, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Brandon Miller.
Yep.
Miles Bridges.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about.
Yeah.
Ish Smith.
Yeah.
The only guy in the league who's played for more teams than Garrett Temple, by the way.
Yeah.
Nick Richards, former Kentucky teammate of Emmanuel Quickly. So that part's cool.
Yep.
You have any guess who their fifth starter was?
So here's the thing. I actually did this exercise with our producers upstairs yesterday. It's Leaky Black.
Yeah.
Yeah. They could not get for the life of them Leaky Black and Ish Smith.
Yeah.
They're like, who plays point guard for the Hornets? And I'm like, you'll never guess.
Yeah.
It wasn't LaMelo.
They didn't want to go to Leaky Black, so they tried Bryce McGowan's in that spot the other day. If Cody Martin plays, he absorbs that spot. But these are not good players. The Raptors have obviously lost to the Hornets in an ugly one, 119-116, and they beat them 114-99 this year. How you feeling?
The line's way too big for the Raptors at this current time. So could the Raptors beat a team like this by 8? Sure. But last game on the road trip, I don't know. I feel like I might actually bet the Hornets.
Ooh.
That's sad.
That was Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Take a chance. Did that one sound like it hurt you, man?
No, it did, man. But I mean, even the last game against the Lakers, they only lost by 6 points. And the Lakers had LeBron and AD. I don't see LeBron and AD on our side.
Yeah, but that was probably they were probably trying to get Darvin Ham fired or D'Lo traded or something like that.
You know what? I want to see Scotty just show out tonight, man. I want to see like a 30, 10, and 10 type of game. Because this will be the type of opportunity to get it for sure. But
it'll be fun. This team doesn't have
big
the
statement
defenders
after the All-Star announcement as well. So it'd be cool. Anyway, that does it for us today. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. It's time to get fired up. Once again, we will have a 3-hour show tomorrow starting at 1 p.m. Eastern. So tune in then. We will carry you through the trade deadline. Hopefully there's a lot of action. We'll see you tomorrow.